Let's go on a dive search. Hello everybody, I'm Jeff, the Seattle Ring Hunter. I'm just going to go ahead and talk over a recent dive that I had performed just to give you some ideas of some of my upgraded equipment and process. iPhone 13 Pro Max with Google Maps, looking for a very specific GPS drop point in a very special water bag with some reinforcing foam that I cut out so I could hold it with the dry gloves, and also a stylus so I could operate that. You'll see here we got the Nerd 2 dive computer on the second stage hose. All right guys, a phenomenal, absolute game-changing piece of kit right here. We got the Shearwater Nerd 2. Tech divers are well aware of what this dive computer is all about. It's not for everybody. There's a very specific application and a need for having it. It's a great safety mitigation and a great assistance and a great tool and a bit of redundancy for myself and my current dive configuration. But here it is. We got the Perdix 2 on the wrist here, as most of you divers are aware of. That's a great computer, and this software inside of this guy here, the Nerd 2, is almost parallel to it, and the menu, screen flows, everything are pretty much can be configured to look almost identical, which is great. This is an in-eye or heads-up display dive computer, so it's going to be just a few inches right below the diver's eye. You can pick usually it's for open circuit, it's going to be mounted off of the hose off the second stage right here, so I'll show you and demonstrate here in just a moment. With that being said, it'll just kick right underneath the eye there. I actually have my dive mask in here, and that'll be put on in a moment. That's actually RX lenses in there, and with those there's absolutely zero problems. There's a magnifier inside of here because they're trying to make the small screen inside of this little device large enough so when you look at it you can actually read it, and you can absolutely read it. It is not a problem. It doesn't seem to be very intrusive at all. It just sits down there and you can just glance down and see all your dive stats. The electric magnetic, I should say, compass is actually amazing too for picking a bearing, especially on the swim out with the dive scooter on the surface. If it's like 220 degrees or whatever the degrees might be, I can just kind of focus on that and kind of stay true to my bearing and make small little minor corrections with my hand as I direct the scooter in the direction I need to go on my swim out. So absolutely amazing. Yeah, it can be used underwater too. If you were going from one point to another and you had to do a certain compass bearing, that's obviously going to be a lot easier than trying to get your wrist up and get the dive computer in the right spot and still be able to see it. You know, I mean, there's, you know, I got a regular traditional compass right here on my wrist as well, Suunto, and you can take these and you can put them on top of your dive scooter, and there's a lot of different things. Like I said, this is a very it does have a price point. Everyone's aware of that, but I'm saying for the style of diving that I'm doing, it is absolutely phenomenal when I'm working down at the surface, at the bottom, and I need to make sure that I'm staying right on top of my dive times and still doing performing the work that I'm doing, moving my arm with the metal detector. Sometimes you just have to stop. You have to, the silt's kind of building up a little bit, so it's, you know, I got to get it real close to the mask so I can see what the dive computer is saying. With this here, it's always there. So let's go ahead and just demonstrate real quickly here. We're going to go ahead and secure this nice foam kit that came with to protect it. Obviously, they did a great job over there at Shearwater, as they always do. This is not by any means a new device. It's been out for a number of years, well supported in the tech community, and it's depended upon for, it's like life-saving equipment. You know, it is a safety of life, a lot of this type of gear. So basically with this clamp system that they have, we can go ahead and move it around here. It goes right over the hose. Once you get it over the hose, you can put the screw latch. Actually, I just missed the critical important part, and that's to run the lanyard around the hose as a safety in case they got entangled or caught on something. You're not going to potentially lose your dive computer so easily. Just think about if you were diving in an area, and it could happen, you know, if you're in ocean waters and you're at a certain, you know, on the side of a wall or something, and you still got 100+ feet below you, and that thing comes loose, it goes down, you may not be getting it back. So nice to have a little safety on their lanyard, and we'll go ahead and move that down here. Obviously I'm doing this part before I put my dry gloves on, just so I have more dexterity and a little bit easier to manipulate what I'm trying to do here. we'll bring the screw fastener on the back side, but we want to get it right there, and it's going to be pretty much like this. And we'll do some fine adjustments after the mask gets on, but for right now we can secure it and just screw it up tight. It's got up and down 360, 2 piezo buttons on the back side here, just the same as you would have on the sides of the Perdix or Peregrine and some of the other Shearwater dive computers. Very reliable. Pinch both of them. Give ourselves a little bit of room here with the long hose. Obviously, if you were in a different dive configuration, you would make other considerations if you wanted to put this on your long hose, if you're going to donate that, and there's other things you'd have to think about. But for today's purposes, this is going to work out perfectly fine for me. And right now I can see that this is going to probably have to be brought down just a little bit. And like I say, once I get the dive mask on, it's not hard at all to adjust and align the eyepiece. But I can look in it right now and I can see that it's set for my proper gas at 32%. So is my other one here. So for my situation today, I would say that the Nerd 2 would be my primary dive computer, and the Perdix 2 would be my redundant backup. Now the cool thing is the Swift tank transmitter pod, as we got right here. I've got one of those on for my gas, and then I got also this twin set is backed up with brass and glass down here as well. So we got our boxes ticked off for having enough gear, having additional redundancy, I should say, more specifically. And then we also got I also have an AL40 down there with a brass and glass on it as a redundant bailout with 32%. The point that I was trying to make is that with this one single transmitter, we can have it, it's just sending out a signal. So this Nerd 2 has been programmed with the serial number ID of this gentleman here, and so has my Perdix 2. So they're both receiving tank pressure at the same time. So we got our isolator open, of course. We always want to leave the isolator open. And we can slowly turn on our gas on our twin set on our primary side on our right shoulder. That's for the long hose, and then we'll go ahead and bring our gas on our left shoulder. Which is the necklace here. And I've got 3272 and 3272 on both of these. So we're rocking. We've got gas, we got viable computers going on here. We're good. And that's really a nice added functionality, so I can actually see all my dive information in my lower right eye through my dive mask. As you can see here, it's got some buttons on it. It's just like the all the other Shearwater dive computers, so it can be modes can be changed and you can dial it in. So this is the first maiden dive with that Nerd 2, so I'm doing a lot of fussing around with it. I've dove it a few times already. Love it, absolutely amazing. The digital compass on it, it's great for swim outs and different places. Utilizing the scooter, I can pick a bearing and really easily keep my eye on the compass bearing just to kind of stay in the bearing that I want to be traveling, just by looking down in my dive mask. So at this point here, we've already done the swim out. We're over our target zone. I've already dropped the sand shark, so that dive float, spearfishing float, has actually got an anchor. As you can see the down line there, that is actually cave line. Believe it or not, I actually prefer to use a thicker gauge poly cord, but I have that on a little tiny downrigger that was used for fishing, so I can crank it up a lot easier, and it's still within the load limit of the line. It's only a few pounds for the actual aluminum sand shark that's at the bottom. That's enough to hold everything into place until I get down there and actually screw it into the floor of the lake and the silt. So I'm just getting prepared, getting my stuff set up here. I'm going to pull over the Deus 2 dive detector. It's also got holstered in the back by the arm cuff. There is the X pointer, modified X pointer with 2 piezo buttons on it. Great project that actually is working out really well when I'm down at depth. I don't have to deal with their craziness. It just works. I just push the button when I want to turn it on and push the button when I turn it off, and there's no problem with water pressure going into special dive mode, having to flip it up and down 2 or 3 times, actually 3 times. And then if you put it horizontal and get it next to the aluminum shaft in that configuration, it'll sit there and start going off, and I just want to throw it away. So that's actually a good thing, and it has been working out phenomenally. I'm very impressed and very excited to have that opportunity to be able to use that when I need it and not have it be a nuisance. It is now an asset, so that is a total win. Getting set up here. Got a couple other lights. I think the one that I currently have on my left hand and the Soft Goodman handle is, now I got my bigger one there, Dive Right. So that's a good torch. I've got a smaller one that I use sometimes if I'm in the shallows and I still get a lot of sunlight and I just want to go a little bit on the more petite side and just keep the gear a little bit more minimalized. That is a bigger light on the top of my hand, but it works perfectly well. I have a couple of them on board, of course. And I'm slowly starting to go down here. This is my typical setup and routine. I have the Deus 2 has to be set before I even take off, and then I gotta lock the keypad, so it's constantly on. The headphones, regular set of cans, U-shaped or horseshoe-shaped headphones, they come on and off very easily. I can ditch that whole rig in about 2 seconds if I get tangled up or anything, and I can come back and get the detector at another time if I need to. My personal safety is first and foremost. So I don't like using the bone conductors for the Deus 2, as I've told people many times. This little bolo type around the head, and I've got dive mask snorkel. I still prefer to use a snorkel. I have not ditched my snorkel habit yet, and I am okay with that for the style of diving I do. And I'm not in caves or overhead, so I don't have to worry about the snorkel getting snagged on any of that crap, so I'm not worried about it. So there you go. Don't like it? That's fine. We all can dive what works best for us, and that's what we're going to do. So I've adapted a lot of things, some from tech diving, some for recreational diving, treasure hunting, and all the other things. So what's working for me is kind of like, things outside of the box. If the pinpointer's not working, then fix the buttons on the back of it and make it so it works for you. Got 2 steel tanks on my back, so a twin set, and a AL40 on my side for a redundant bailout, 32%. And we're going down. We're just slowly going down, equalizing with the left hand squeeze of the nose right there, getting a little equalization as we're going down, dry suit, taking care of business. We're going to get down to the bottom here, and we'll be able to see the sand shark come up into view in a little bit here, most likely, as we get a little closer to the bottom. Well, like I said, this is not the most ideal downline because it's so thin, but hey, you got to give me credit. I did get rid of the steel cable that came initially with the downrigger. I thought this line would be a little bit better, just easier to manage. It's completely fine. I mean, people use it for the safety of life when they're inside of a cave and it's stretched between 2 rocks and tied off. You're not supposed to be pulling yourself up and down the damn line so much. You should have better buoyancy control, especially for just a recreational dive, limits and such. So that being said, it's a guide, and as you can see here, and it's been working perfectly fine. I've used it quite a few times already, and I'm very pleased with it. There's a sand shark laying flat on the bottom in a moment here. That's actually this is a repeat dive in this area, and that PVC pole was left behind from the previous dive. I have a bunch of them in my garage, so I brought another one. It's actually on the side of the sand shark that I sent down, and so I can see it there because the silt's all cleared out. I knew it would be there. I wasn't worried about it. Totally cheap. Nothing. If I even lost it, I wasn't even worried about it. So I'm going to grab it, and I have an extra double-ended bolt snap that I'm going to put on it, and I'm going to clip it up out of the way a little bit higher on my downline just to get it out of the way so it's not in an entanglement or an impedance or in a problem when I try to do my circle search. So you'll see here, this is just one of the things that I have to take care of. It's a little bit time consuming, not excessively, but I've got a 60-minute bottom time, so I want to be efficient about this. I'm just going to wrap it around a couple times. I'm not even going to tie a knot in it. Pretty small line. I wrap it around a few times. It's pretty lightweight, and I'm down in depth, so it shouldn't move on the line too much. It's not real heavy, and it'll stay there, and it should be completely above the top of the sand shark. See, just a little bit working down there. The silt starts to build up. but will remain online once I get clipped into this whole system, as you'll see. And it is a little bit annoying, but sometimes the Deus 2, I throw it to the side a little bit, and I start to try to screw the Sandshark because it's got a helical screw coil at the bottom. And I keep the Deus 2 detector keeps wanting to get in the way. So at one point, I believe I just took the coil and put it back behind me between my legs just to keep it from floating around and just to keep it out of the way. I still have the headphone cable, and I try not to put too much pressure on it, of course. That there on the left is the marker pole that I brought down on this dive specifically. So the other one's above, so it's out of the way. The marker pole, I usually just release it, and I just take an arm's length away and just shove it into the silt. It's not very deep silt here in this site, so it'll be there just out of the way. And that's what I use to know that I made it 360 degrees all the way around the circle, and I don't have to rely upon compass bearings at all. When my detector smacks the plastic PVC pole, I can let out another 5 feet or so off of my dive spool, which is 100-foot dive spool marked every 5 feet with white heat shrink and a black Sharpie pen. Marked it all out. So you'll see in a minute here, right down there in the lower left-hand corner, you see a little loop of paracord. That's a little swivel that I'm going to clip into after I get it's taken a little bit of time on this specific site. It's kind of hard to actually get the Sandshark to bite into it, but it is doing its job, and it is enough to keep it upright because I'm going to be clipping into it. That's my pivot pole. That's just a little latch down below, so it extends the lower portion, so it's twice as long for storage. You can shorten it up, but as you can see, it is starting to go in, and there's the detector down there, kind of getting a little close. At some point, I'd probably put my hand on it and pitch it back behind me, but this is a really awesome system. I love it because it goes straight up to my dive protection, my dive float up above. It holds all my gear up above. Yeah, so this is how it typically goes. Sometimes I can just take and push it halfway down into the silt in about 2 seconds, depending on how deep the silt is and how thin it is. This one here, I got to work a little bit, but the little T-handle at the top is absolutely brilliant. You can push the T-handle shaft, and it goes parallel with the side of the Sandshark for storage, and I usually break it down. Sometimes I leave it. My swivel is down below it. I'm usually working on the bottom, so I don't really go any higher than that point. So if I leave it out in a T-handle shape, it's not going to cause any problems. So right here, probably starting to pick around on my left dry suit pocket to grab my spool. At some point I got to retrieve that out of the pocket, and I'm doing that with my left hand right now. Pretty straightforward and easy. Little double-ended bolt snap, getting that off the D-ring. That's off camera. That's why we're sitting here at this point. And that black in the screen on the left corner, of course, is the other computer in my eye. The dive camera's up on above my right ear on the mast strap, so that's the point of view that you're getting. As you can see, we've got the spool connected now to the swivel, and I'm just going to be working that. Obviously, we want to take our bolt snap and make sure it's secured, always secured to something. If you drop it and it's not secured, you're going to have to use the detector to find it down in the silt. So I have one end secured while I take the other one loose so I can unravel it from the actual dive spool. So we have a free running deployable line. And kind of fussing around with this just a little bit. It usually goes pretty quickly. You just wrap it around the bolt snap and back through, open up the gate, latch it in there. It works really well. Quite common practice. Typical dive thing. We got the spool in the left hand. I'm holding on to that. My thumb and forefinger is the brake on it. And I completely manage that the whole dive in my left hand. And sometimes I'll have that dive spool and I'll have the pinpointer in my left hand as well, turned off. So it's just quickly and easily I can take it with my right hand if I want to put the Deus 2 dive detector down. After I've located a target in the silt off to the side, I can poke around. I can release a little bit extra line, so if the line's taut and I'm going around the circle and I get something that's a little bit further out from the line, I can just let a little out and get over the top of it. And so I was just testing the pinpointer there to make sure everything was functioning, and it was actually functioning as intended perfectly. I love it. So as you can see here, I'm just kind of getting set up here as I just described. I've got the pinpointer and the spool in my left hand. I go in a counterclockwise fashion because I like to run the detector in my right hand. So that works for me. So the detector's on the outside of this circle search, so I'm not trying to detect over the top of a line underneath it, getting all entangled and crap like that. Now I'm going to set the PVC marker pole out a little bit. So on this dive here, I'm actually starting from the pivot pole, obviously, really close. And you can see there on the left, the blue pivot pole. And I just work in this area a little bit more. I've worked this area a few times looking for a specific item. And as you can see, it starts to get silted up. It comes and goes depending on the content of the silt and how much I'm working it down there. But basically, I'm a bottom feeder. If I got a little target, I'll put the detector aside like there and poke around with the pinpointer. Could be a big old aluminum can, could be a small bottle cap, pull tab, some micro jewelry, as we say, jewelry, and little tiny little pieces of crap or whatever, cigarette lighters, you name it, it's down there. People throwing it overboard or it's fallen out of their hands. So very small items, larger items, I'm not going to miss it too much, but I'm just kind of doing the best I can. I'm not overly concerned about the amount of silt that I'm stirring up. It's part of my normal routine and experience. Over 500 dives now. At least 85% of my dives look like this. I have a lot of experience doing this kind of work, so I'm confident and comfortable. I know this area. There's not any, it's pretty flat and not a lot going on down there. So there's not a huge entanglement concern so much. Some lakes you have to be careful with if you're getting close in the shallows to the trees and snags and such. You wouldn't be running this kind of a search most likely with a line. I'll probably just freestyle it. But with this one here, absolutely. It's miles and miles of, flat bottom. And it goes up and down in depth, of course, but I can run a line, and this is really nice. There's not trees or anything in this specific area that are going to be in the way. So that's one of the reasons why if you got small rocks or mounds or little trees that, like some of these, that they've cut the trees down over the years for, a reservoir type of lake taps here locally is a real pain in the ass. A lot of snags out there, a lot of trees in the way. So that's why I want to try to get that swivel up a little bit higher off the bottom. And that's one of the reasons why I put it on a pivot pole, and all this came together, and it was, hey, it's an anchor system, and hey, it's, going to hold my gear up the top with the dive flag, and everything's going to be great. And it has been. It's a great system, but it gets that swivel up a little bit higher, so it's just not down at the bottom. So you can take the left hand and move it up in the air a little bit if you're trying to, go around something, get over something small on the bottom. It gives me a little bit extra. So this piece of wire, actually, so that's going into my trash bag on my left lower D clip on my waist. So yeah, I've got a few things clipped on down there. I got my AL40 lower bolt snap clipped down there, and that's free and clear. I can get to it at any point in time. It's not impeded. I've got a brass and glass SPG, and so that's down there as well. So tank pressure for the twin set, and then I got this clamshell bag with a little clip on it. So I got 3 things on the D-ring. It's not overloaded. It's not mitigating my safety, or else I wouldn't be doing it. To the best of my knowledge, I've thought about a lot of this for a long period of time. And you kind of work these things out slowly. You don't do it all in one night. Like I said, this is accumulation of 7 years, 500 dives, putting this all together. So, just going back and forth here, and I'm going to work this area. It's kind of boring if you're just watching it, maybe to a certain degree. That detector there, of course, has 0 to 199, probably. I think it is 0 to 99. So as far as detecting types of metals, I get a signal. I can tell if it's ferrous, non-ferrous. That's helpful, but I still got to clear the metal parts and figure out what they are in case the item I'm looking for is masked. If I happen to land right next to it, I have pulled a wedding ring right off the top of a very shallow water. It wasn't even diving, but I did pull a wedding ring off the top of an aluminum beer can once. I was just using the pinpointer, kind of dipping down because it was like chest high water. picked up the beer can, and the gold wedding ring was sitting right on top of the beer can and the silt. So it was a Miller Ice beer and the gold ring with all the diamond ice on ice. It was amazing. But anyway, just to say, you got to check everything and go through it very carefully, because you don't want to miss that important thing you're looking for. So at any rate, that's kind of what we're doing here. Then reverse the process at the end of the dive. Kind of reel in the dive spool when the dive is getting close on time and it's time to close down, and always keeping an eye. That's why you see this black little item in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. That is my dive computer, my primary dive computer now. And it's just absolutely phenomenal. I love it. I can look down, see what my no deco time is at all times. It's just safety. It's just awesome. Having that there is just a peace of mind. And having 2 dive computers, hell, what's wrong with that? Nothing. Redundancy, that's always good. So I'm loving life on this thing already. I've only dove with it a few times, but I'm going to get a lot of good use out of it. And it's nice just to be able to look down and see where I'm at and keep moving with my process. So, it's basically gas supply and deco time. I only get so much time down there per dive, and I'm trying to, several dives sometimes for some of these that are a little bit more challenging. So I want to be able to do as much work as possible and take the most advantage out of all the effort and opportunity of putting all this gear on. Hell, it's over an hour now getting all the gear together at the car. And that's no joke. I've done it enough times. It's not 45 minutes anymore. It's just a little extra. So it's like almost an hour. And that's not counting. That's just the time of when I pull up and got to get all the stuff out of the car, get it all put together, get the dry suit on, get the P valve connected, and all the other little goodies, all the details. Get all the mixtures, his safety checks, make sure everything's in line, make sure we didn't miss anything, that we're not missing anything. I think had some O-rings that had a little bit of an issue. I think it was before this dive, actually, with the SPG on the dive spool, or the little spool in there where the high pressure hose screws into the SPG. O-ring got pinched or something, and it was just turned on the gas the first time and oh crap, turn the gas off real quick and go for the spare O-ring, save a dive kit, save my ass. I was able to still dive because I had the proper O-rings and switched them out, and everything was back in business. So it does take a lot of time. So what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to maximize my opportunity at the bottom. It's completely manual setup system. I've got to be down there working at silt and working all the items. I've thought of everything I can think of. I've got a dive drone, 300 feet of line, and a high definition camera. It's no gripper on it, but you can get a gripper for them and you can get a metal detector for it, but it's just not prudent. It won't do the type of work that I need to do. Of course, for larger traditional salvage operations, so like vessel down or treasure hunting for Columbus ship or something of that nature, we've got a lot of other very expensive operations and missions that have been taking place for years. But you can take a boat from the surface and drop down like a magnetometer, or even like what some of the guys are doing, looking for the cars with the fish finders and such, using sonar. So there's a lot of technology as far as that concerned, but all of that stuff is not going to work when you're trying to find it 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 feet, a lost wedding ring, expensive wristwatch, chains, bracelets, cell phones, whatever the case may be. Cell phone may be at depth and you're like, hey, that thing's going to be flooded. Sometimes they get dropped with a waterproof bag. Recovered one at 50 feet. It's complete 100% recovery. So there's a lot of different considerations, but like I said, it keeps coming back to I or somebody with the experience, the gear set, skill set, the equipment, the gear on the ready, has to go down there and dive and has to poke around on the bottom inch by inch. These items are very small. Wedding rings small. It's, less diameter than the size of a quarter or $50. Miss it by an inch, miss it by a mile. It's a cliche and it's been oversaid so many times, but it's so true. Absolutely so true. So to find this stuff in this down here, I can see in front of my face, but the silt, I can't even see the tip of the pinpointer in this frame here. We're talking zero visibility as far as what the metal detector is my eyes down there, and the pinpointer helps me to be able to utilize both hands to collect the small items and pick up, whatever this may be. Another piece of metal, it looks like, obviously a piece of metal, but wire or something, I forget. So I just throw it in the trash bag. We don't want to leave it down there. If we're still working a site, we want to clean it out each dive and take that stuff and get it out of the environment so we just don't come across it. Was that a key? I think there was a key, a padlock key that I found at one point. Brass key, whatever it is. It's picked up, it's put in the bag, and you just keep moving. And, it's just rinse, wash, and repeat, and do the best you can until you find the item you're looking for. And it gets silted up, and it kind of dies down and silts up some more. So it's part of the deal. And the Nerd 2, and even with that silt and such, I was still able to see completely fine all the numbers very clearly in my dive mask. Just a little bit of silt there, and you got about a foot, 12 inches or so of penetration with the detector itself. So I'm skimming right over the bottom, so I find a lot of items, a lot of trash. Sometimes it's very frustrating, dive after dive after dive, and you just know you haven't missed it. The medium-sized items, of course, sometimes you just haven't missed it. You just haven't got over the top of it yet. Smaller ones like wedding rings could be potentially missed if you're not careful and cautious. So you got to take time. You got to be efficient. Try to get as much coverage as you can. But it's a fine balance of what you're doing. You can see the size of the coil, but the coil has to move over the top of the item. It's a couple different technologies on the metal detectors. This one here swings back and forth because that's how that system works. You got to swing it left and right, and you got to keep it moving to get the target to make a noise because it's the difference of the signal and everything. It's some metal detectors, you just get close to metal and it just you move it away and you put it right over top and hold it there and it'll just go. And this one here, you got to keep swinging it. So it's a lot of fun. It's pretty exciting. It's always great to find these items that are so precious and sentimental value and financial value for people and get them recovered. But it's a total blast. Of course, it's a total adventure, and ticks a lot of boxes. It's a lot of labor and work too. So the compensation for doing these jobs definitely needs to be a component that needs to be there, and people need to appreciate what's being done because it is a lot of labor and time. That has to be set aside. This is like a whole day's worth of work here that we're talking about for some of these simple dives. And you're like, hey, you just went out for an hour to dive, and what's the big deal? Well, it is a big deal. And there's a lot of time, effort, and financial investment that's gone in to get to this point, and a lot of experience. So cut my teeth over the years and still continuing to learn, still trying to think outside of the box. And, as the opportunities and time comes to be able to rub up against other guys that have this passion and share a couple of things here and there and just kind of fine tuning. It's a discipline. It's a discovery. It's a challenge. It's a passion. It's a hobby. It's a this, it's a that, it's a service. It's it's a mission, whatever you want to call it, but it's just a hell of a lot of fun. Very exhilarating and very exciting. A dive with a purpose really focuses one's energy and really gets them motivated to want to go out and continue diving. Whatever your passion is, you love taking pictures of the marine fish and doing macros and digital photography, or if you just like to go out and just look at all the critters, or if you like to do research or whatever it might be in the water, or maybe you just like to work in the water and do inspections and docks and that kind of work, whatever it is, just find it out what your passion is and go after it. May not even be diving. You may have a totally different interest in something that's not even water related, but find out what it is for you and go after it. A jump cut, I already come up to the surface from that dive, and I just want to go ahead and give you some visual experience on the end of the dive once I get to the surface here. Got the Deus 2 metal detector there, of course. I'm getting that all configured, getting ready to clip that back on. That is my second or third, I think it's my third one. It's a spearfishing float. Call it a belly float. You could use it to rest on, but they have these straps that come with it. This one actually came with bungees, so the straps, once again, they don't configure these for my specific application, so I had to design the straps and get all the proper pieces of pinch buckles, quick disconnect buckles. Had a seamstress actually sew some stuff up for me on those straps, and had to figure all that out. But yeah, that's usually a spear gun that they put in there. But I'm putting a metal detector on one side, and as you'll see here in a moment, we're going to put the Sandshark anchor system that was down below before it came up, and you didn't see it. Of course, I had to put all my dive spool. I just reel it back in, go to this pivot pole, and put the dive spool in my dry suit pocket, and then I had to unscrew that pivot pole and make sure that the marker pole, little PVC pipe, was back attached to it, and it's sitting at the bottom flat on the bottom. It's not screwed into the bottom any longer, so then I just went up, did my proper stops on the way up, so I met all my demands as far as safety stops and such, and did a nice, safe, prudent dive and got to the surface. And then, as you can see here, catching up here, got the dive detector secured on the side. Everything's got to be clipped off or it's going to be back down on the bottom, and that's just a little piece of rope that I use to hang on to this, since I don't want it floating away. It's not going anywhere right now. Sandshark's heavy enough to hold it into position. Dive scooter's clipped off underneath the float, so that's going to be secure there until I need it. And you can see that white block, that's marine grade plastic. They use it a lot of times for cabinetry and different things inside of boats. It's made for marine applications, and those are some pretty big chunks that are used as a base to be able to essentially hold the downrigger with that, basically that spool of cave line that's going all the way down. After I get the foam put away here and secure out of the way, you'll see me go back towards the back end there and start to hand crank the Sandshark up, and it has actually been working out phenomenally. I love it. Yeah, just take a few more minutes here. Some point I think I'm going to start working myself back towards the back end here. Here I go, and as you can see, the downline's down there, Sandshark, and it's at an angle, but I've got basically two sets of straps that go underneath the float, and that's how I have it attached. You can see the black straps there, the two of them going over the edge. There's a pinch buckle underneath, directly underneath, so I just take the two ends and snap it together, and got the proper hardware and stuff screwed into those white pieces of poly-palm plastic. And anyway, there's a thumb screw up there that puts tension on it to lock it down, and now I'm going to start at some point here. It's going to get a lot of angle on it, but it's not going anywhere, and my arm gets tired depending on how deep it is. For really shallow dives, like 15-20 feet, I probably wouldn't bother with this as much. I could still use it, but for the deeper ones, it gets really tiring when you're just floating around in the water and you're just sitting there trying to use your hand and a spool in one hand and trying to wind it up. It's insanity. I've done it too many times. That's what drove me to actually invest time, money, and thought into developing this very specific. You can't buy this off the shelf anywhere. You can buy the parts, but this is my own design. As far as, you got an inflatable float. How are you gonna bolt anything into that? You can't. You just really can't. You can glue stuff to it. You can put straps around it, and that's about it. So if you have some type of a mount of some sort, you might glue it onto the side. There, it got a little bit loose, but yeah. Actually, I've reached it to the top here, so that's what I needed. As you can see, there's the Sandshark coming up. Got to give myself enough slack so I can get the tip of that Sandshark up towards the nose of the float. So I'm going to let some line out here, and yeah, as you can see, I'm just getting a little extra line, still leaving it tight, clipped off, because if it falls out of my hand by accident, I don't want the Sandshark to I want some way to retrieve it without having to dive down for it. So, if it's not, there's both of the poles, one from the previous dive and from the current dive. As you can see, when I was down at the bottom, I actually shortened it. But if this little lever that I'm about to put this bungee cord around, not that part, that's the tip, or the pointed end, that lever, this is actually a safety. So if you push down on it, this whole lower portion could fall out. It's happened before, not me, but it has happened before, so I gotta be very careful, or else I'd lose that and have to go dive back down for it at some point later. Wouldn't be right there at this time. I'd have to come back and get it, because I just did a hour's dive down there, and you got to have your safety mitigation. You got to take your time out and make sure you have enough gas. You got to do another dive at another time. So this thing I think I take a little bit of a risk here and unclip it because I got it over on top of the boat, but you really have to go quickly and make sure I get that clipped off. And I did it pretty fast. I had it stable, but you take a little bit of risk. Should have clipped it off to the handhold first and then taken the line off just to be a little bit more safe about it. It's a risk sometimes when you do stuff like that. If you drop it, it's all on me. I just have to come back and see that thumb lever's pointed down. I want to get it pointed up a little bit because I'm going to put straps underneath it, I believe. That's what I typically do. Yep. And clip that off, make sure it's secured. And then I got one up in the front end. What's that? Little finagling, but it's okay. Eventually we'll get it. I'm not fighting or struggling all that much. I'm just kind of floating around on the water. It's not like my arms are getting all tired and anything like that. So got one side done, and that's connected up there, but then I also have another one. So for the swim back, everything's nice and secure. Gonna give it just a little extra line just to make it a little bit easier. Give it some slack. Great thing about pinch buckles, pinch clips. And then, you can just take the tag end to the line and pull on it, give it a little bit of snug, and it's secure. Just wanted to kind of show you that. And you can see how this whole process works. And then I can secure the line here. Oop. Pull that right up, and then I take the looped end of it and just put it around the handle and put the thumb screw down so it's got some pressure on it. It locks it right into place. Couldn't be any easier than that. I'm really appreciating and loving the way that system turned out as well. It's just such a savings. It makes a lot of sense. It's easy to deploy the Sand Shark as well. When I get over the top of the GPS point, I can just let it go. I actually have a quick release underneath the float that I have it clipped onto, and I have the thumb screw completely wound out. So it's just when I pull the little tag on it, it releases the clip. You might have seen it there. It's actually in the back. They use them on sailboats all the time. Specific name for it, I don't know what it's called, but it's a great little. It's got a little pin on it, spring-loaded pin. When you pull it, it just opens up the clamp, and everything goes free, as it should. So like if you were deploying a sail on a sailboat and you need to let it go quickly, you can just pull on the little ear on it. You'll see those later some point, probably in another video. But all these little pieces of marine hardware, dive hardware, gear, put it all together, and it just makes for a hell of a system, hell of a setup. And there's the dive scooter. I'll get all that together, and that'll be the end of the dive. So thanks for sharing some time and taking a look and watching what we had going on here. And just remember, this is Seattle Ring Hunter in Washington State. If you've lost an item of value, give me a call as soon as possible, 206-618-8194. And let's have a quick chat to find out what we can do to help assist you on your lost item recovery needs. Alrighty, just remember, you drop an item of value, get a pin on your iPhone, a cell phone, Android, fish finder, chart plotter, and a boat. Just got to get that GPS coordinates as quickly as humanly possible. If you drop something over water or a small, dainty, expensive piece of jewelry in the soccer field over the grass, don't move. Just get a phone and make sure you get that location captured. It's going to be a lot more efficient, and it's going to give higher probability of getting something recovered that you've lost. Till the next time, we'll see you. Stay safe, and don't lose your items. Cheers.
If you've lost your ring or special item of value, please get in touch with me at theseattleringhunter.com as soon as possible so I can arrange to do a search for you.